I don't often talk about this on the show, but I've mentioned off and on that I've owned Bitcoin for a long time. And over the last 24 hours, I got like 10 or 12 different requests to talk about what's going on with Bitcoin. And it's in the news so much in the last day or two that I think it does make sense to talk about it. In the last week, we've seen some major mainstreaming of Bitcoin. And at this point, the idea that it's just going to go away is seeming very, very unlikely to me. And I'm going to explain to you why. But to give you some examples of the mainstreaming of Bitcoin recently, here is, for example, AMC Entertainment, which owns movie theaters, CEO Adam Aron, who says they are going to start accepting Bitcoin, Litecoin, and Ethereum before the end of the year, and Dogecoin next year. Take a look at this.
Yeah, we've said we're going to accept before year end. We will accept Bitcoin, Litecoin, Ethereum, Dogecoin, all by year, all by right now for AMC gift cards.
Yeah.
By year end for Bitcoin, Litecoin, Ethereum, I think we'll be able to take Dogecoin in Q1. So again,
big changes.
We're entering the 21st century in a big way.
We've also learned over time, and some of these decisions were actually made long ago, about how more and more college endowments, as well as financial advisory type companies, are holding or recommending holding some percentage of assets in cryptocurrency. Some examples: the Harvard Management Company has invested in Bitcoin since 2019, according to one report. The Brown University Endowment has invested in cryptocurrency now for some period of time. JP Morgan is now, or has been since about 6 months ago, suggesting to investors maybe look at putting 1% of your portfolio in Bitcoin. Morgan Stanley has actually started offering its wealthy clients access to Bitcoin funds, and a number of new funds and ETFs have gone live even in the last several weeks. Just picking different things to show you the breadth of this. NBA owner Mark Cuban says that soon the Mavericks will accept Dogecoin for tickets to the games. And the Mavericks have for some period of time, have already been accepting Bitcoin for payment as well. So all of these things together, what is the point here, I guess, is the question. This is not a segment about, is Bitcoin good or is Bitcoin bad? In fact, the longer Bitcoin is around, it's sort of like saying, is the dollar good or is the dollar bad? These are financial technologies that exist. And really, it's about how are they used? How are they regulated? What do they mean, etc. This is not about, is Bitcoin used for criminal transactions? Sure, it is. The dollar is still the primary currency used for criminal transactions. Not a super interesting conversation for this segment. What about energy use for Bitcoin mining? An important topic for sure, not the topic of this particular conversation. The conversation today is this going to be merely a passing fad? And it seems tougher and tougher to argue that Bitcoin is going to be a passing fad. Now, notice that I haven't talked in this segment about the price of Bitcoin. Yesterday, today, Bitcoin roughly equaled its all-time high of about $64,000 per coin. This is about adoption, and this is about use. It's tough to imagine Bitcoin just evaporating. Could it be regulated into obscurity at this point? Maybe, but it would really require coordinated action by lots of governments. And even then, I'm unsure. There are ETFs, there are funds, mainstream funds and ETFs, which are based on cryptocurrency at this point in time. Now, am I recommending anyone do anything in particular? Absolutely not. That's not what the show is about. This is not a segment about buy Bitcoin or sell Bitcoin, or I think Bitcoin will be worth X at any point in time. That's not it at all. I wondered if this might be something with lasting potential back in 2015. And so I bought Bitcoin back then and a few other coins. And as they've gone up in value, I've sold pieces of my holdings to lock in gains, all with the idea that I have no idea where this is going to go. But now my thinking is as follows. Nassim Nicholas Taleb wrote the book The Black Swan, wrote the book Anti-Fragile, as well as other books. Very interesting work, Nassim Nicholas Taleb. And he says, in thinking about, like, for example, what books to read and what has stood the test of time and likely will continue to, he says, if something's been around for 500 years and people keep reading it, it's quite plausible that it's going to be around and people are going to keep reading it for another 500 years. That might be something worth reading. Maybe, if the topic is interesting and, everybody make a decision for yourself. A book that's been around for a year, we can say it'll probably be around another year, but it's harder to say it'll probably be around another 500 years. And in fact, most books written in the last year are not going to be read 500 years from now. Along the same lines, Bitcoin was created in 2009. That's now been 12, almost 13 years. It's hard to imagine it going poof in the next month. It's hard to imagine it going poof in the next year. And so the longer that it goes, particularly when you see trade volumes so high, and the price is certainly a signal as well, it becomes more and more reasonable to think it's going to continue being around. And that's a really interesting change from what was being said in 2011 and what was being said in 2013. So again, just to be really, really clear, I have no idea what the price of Bitcoin is going to be. I'm not suggesting anyone buy or sell it. But at this point, as a financial technology, it seems as though it's here to stay. And it's quite plausible that it's been here almost 12, almost 13 years. It's quite plausible to me it's going to be around another 12 or 13 years. At that point, it will be 26 years. And if it can make it that long, it becomes even harder to imagine that it's just going to disappear. That's my perspective at this point in time. I'm curious to hear from folks. And please comment on what I've actually said, which has nothing to do with what I expect the price of Bitcoin to be. I've not said a word about that. One of our sponsors is Privacy.com. They're giving you $5 when you sign up for their completely free service at Privacy.com/Pacman. I've been using Privacy for a little over a year now. You've heard me talk about it before. It's a lifesaver, and here's how it works. Takes just a couple of minutes to set up. Anytime you buy something online or on the phone, instead of actually using your real credit card number, the Privacy app and the browser plugin let you give each company a randomized virtual credit card number that you create out of thin air. It'll even autofill the card number with one click. And the payment is taken out of your checking account without the merchant ever knowing your real information. So this allows you to keep your banking information secure, but also to take control of your finances. You can create up to 12 of these virtual credit cards a month. You can set spending limits. You can freeze them. You can delete them anytime you want. So when you do this, it means you're not going to be charged when you don't want to be, because you can destroy the virtual card number right after using it, which, for instance, I love using free trials because I know I won't be charged when the trial is over if I use a virtual credit card number. You're keeping your identity private by not telling companies who you are. You're keeping your bank or credit card info protected against data breaches and identity theft. And it's free. There's no catch whatsoever. But if you want, Privacy also offers a $10 a month plan that gives you 1% cash back and lets you create 36 credit cards a month, and a $25 a month plan tailored more for small businesses where you can create 60 card numbers a month and much more. But definitely go ahead and at least get started with the free plan. You'll protect your financial info. Companies can't charge you unexpectedly. And like I said, you'll get $5 to spend when you sign up at Privacy.com/Pacman.